I am an engineer reacting to Magcargo's Pokédex entry. So far, we have learned that Magcargo are made of basaltic lava. Also, Magcargo live near or inside effusive volcanoes, which are volcanoes that erupt frequently and non-explosively. Finally, we saw that Magcargo's hardened lava shell is paradoxical, as it wouldn't be able to be both molten and solid at the same time. You can't have your lava cake and eat it too, Magcargo. In this video, we are starting with the big one.
Magcargo's body temperature is approximately 10,000 degrees Celsius. Water is vaporized on contact. If this Pokemon is caught in the raindrops instantly turn into steam, cloaking the area in thick fog.
Let's look at each sentence one at a time, starting with Magcargo's body temperature is approximately 10,000 degrees Celsius. 10,000 degrees Celsius is hotter than the surface of the sun. The surface. There is no single temperature of the sun, just like there is no single temperature of the earth. We're obviously existing on the surface of the earth between minus 25 degrees Celsius and 45 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, the Earth's core is estimated to be between 5,400 degrees Celsius and 6,000 degrees Celsius. Likewise, the Sun has layers with a variety of temperatures. The Sun's core, for instance, is about the same order of magnitude difference compared to the Sun's surface, compared to the Earth's core and the Earth's surface, the Sun's surface being known as the photosphere and being at a temperature of around 5,500 degrees Celsius. Tungsten, the metal with the highest melting point, vaporizes at around 5,700 degrees Celsius. If Magcargo were actually 10,000 degrees Celsius, then it would vaporize everything around it, including itself. At that temperature, elements would turn into a state of matter more energetic than a gas, called a plasma. Magcargo's body wouldn't be a corporeal lava snail. Instead, it would be a glowing mass of superheated plasma, much like a small star. And do you know what a small star is very good at doing? Radiating heat. Even the smallest star, which would be a red dwarf, emits about 0.0001 the energy of our sun and would still be powerful enough to melt steel. Magcargo would never survive on Earth. The strongest material known to science would disintegrate as a fraction of that heat. There would be no Pokemon Center, no Pokeball, no battlefield, no environment that could contain it. How much heat would Magcargo emit? Magcargo's radiative heat emission can be estimated using the Stefan-Boltzmann law, where P is the power, energy emitted per second. Sigma is the Stefan-Boltzmann constant. A is the surface area of Magcargo. I have estimated a surface area of roughly 2 meters squared, accounting for its shell and its bumpy lava-like structure. Of course, I had to assume the lava is viscous enough to be, for that to be like a significant enough consideration, and to be actually part and parcel of Magcargo's morphology. But I somehow think that my claim is justified because we do see 2 drops on the opposite sides of Magcargo's lips, clearly exemplifying that the lava is somehow, even though I claimed before that it's a basaltic, low viscous, but yeah, that is as viscous as pitch. T is the absolute temperature in Kelvin. So 10,000 degrees Celsius becomes 10,273 Kelvin, although that doesn't really affect our order of magnitude approximation here. So if we plug all of this in, this gives us an energy output of roughly gigawatts, or about the same as an entire nuclear power plant. This means Magcargo, just by existing, would be constantly outputting as much energy as a nuclear reactor, making it fundamentally impossible to stand in it, let alone battle. The next two statements are similar, but come with unique, unprecedented consequences. First, water is vaporized on contact. You see, water does not boil, does not vaporize at 10,000 degrees Celsius. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius because it is at this temperature that the water molecules gain enough energy as a whole to overcome the hydrogen bonds that are holding them together. The hydrogen bonds are intermolecular forces in water that are holding the water molecules together in liquid form. Temperature is actually essentially a measure of molecular energy. As it increases, water molecules move more vigorously until they have sufficient energy to break free from the neighboring molecules, transforming from a liquid into a gas. However, when the temperature is high enough, two things can happen. I'll address one to tackle this statement and the other for the final sentence. Hydrogen bonds are actually very weak compared to the covalent bonds between the hydrogen and oxygen atoms that make up an H2O molecule. When the hydrogen bonds are all broken, the molecules are free to move, but they're still molecules. And the space between molecules expands by about 2,000 times. Crucially, the molecules can sometimes collide with each other. As the temperature increases, the collision rate increases as well, and the molecules have more energy. At around 10,000 degrees Celsius, the molecules can collide with enough speed and energy to break the covalent bonds that are formed between them. And they have so much energy that they can't even come back together. These particles are charged as well. So what happens is the molecules break apart, they form hydrogen bonds, hydrogen ions, and hydroxide ions, which are charged. Ions are charged particles. So Magcargo would also cause huge electrical arcs, just like a lightning strike, that could cause a national blackout and destroy potentially the Earth's magnetosphere, which shields the Earth from deadly cosmic waves like X-rays and gamma rays. The atmosphere around Magcargo should be a glowing ionized gas cloud, similar to the corona of the sun. No trainer could survive anywhere near it without suitable protective gear. Perhaps like the one in New Pokemon Snap. This second statement claims that if this Pokemon is caught in the raindrops instantly turn into steam, cloaking the area in a thick fog. In theory, this is partially correct. Extreme heat can cause water to flash vaporize, creating steam. But in practice, this would not result in a localized fog, but a violent thermodynamic explosion. Why? Well, when a very hot object comes into contact with water, the Leidenfrost effect occurs. Instead of immediately boiling away, a thin vapor layer forms between the hot surface and the water droplet, insulating it temporarily. This is why water droplets dance on a hot pan before evaporating. But at Magcargo's temperature, this effect would be magnified to an extreme. Any water approaching Magcargo would expand violently at supersonic speeds, causing an explosion of superheated steam and plasma like a thermonuclear bomb. No raindrop would therefore ever touch Magcargo. In fact, nothing could, not even a Pokeball, even if Mega Blastoise uses Hydro Cannon on it. Magcargo would be shielded from the water thanks to the Leidenfrost effect. The superheated water would create a powerful updraft that could take the energetic particles, the ionized particles, straight to the ozone layer and the magnetosphere, where, of course, they could wreak havoc. Finally, if enough rain fell, the rapid expansion of steam could theoretically generate hurricane force winds, turning localized weather into a cataclysmic thermal event. It should be painfully obvious that 10,000 degrees Celsius is a preposterously large number. So let's move on to the next entry, which states,
this Pokemon lives near the craters of volcanoes. It stores fire energy in its shell of cooled and hardened magma.
Is it possible to live so close to a volcano? What is fire energy? And why is said energy only in its shell? First of all, the Pokédex finally makes sense here, or at least some sense. Many real-world organisms do thrive in volcanic environments, namely extremophiles, as we've already seen, that survive in extreme heat, high acidity also, and even low oxygen conditions. For example, thermophilic bacteria and archaea thrive in hydrothermal vents, volcanic hot springs, and deep-sea volcanic ridges. The Pompeii worm survives temperatures up to 80 degrees Celsius by hosting a protective layer of symbiotic bacteria. Tardigrades can survive extreme heat, radiation, and even the vacuum of space. So a creature could adapt to live near volcanoes. However, the rest of the entry starts to break down faster than an Axelgo using agility. While there is no such term as fire energy, there is thermal energy, which is a measure of how much heat is stored due to the motion of particles. Still, can this energy be contained? Yes. To be clear, if something is hot, it means it is releasing its thermal energy and not storing it. So, unless Magcargo shell has some kind of thermal regulation mechanism built into it to inhibit the loss of its thermal energy, it cannot store its heat. On the other hand, certain phase change materials store and release heat by transitioning between solid and liquid states. Magma itself behaves this way. It absorbs heat to remain liquid and releases heat as it solidifies. But more accurately, molten salt batteries store thermal energy for later use, but they require insulation and containment. In short, hardened lava, which is a solid rock, is a terrible thermal battery. Heat capacity refers to how well a material retains heat, and basalt has a relatively low heat capacity. Also, a thermal conductivity refers to how quickly heat moves throughout a material, and solid rock is, yeah, you guessed it, a poor conductor. So heat doesn't move efficiently in or out of it. So for Magcargo's shell to actually store and release thermal energy, it would need to be made of something like a high efficiency phase change material like paraffin wax or molten salt that absorbs and releases heat in a controlled way. A porous structure, or a porous structure even with trapped gases to act as an insulating buffer, that would allow heat to escape gradually instead of all at once as well. A Magcargo shell would not work as an energy reservoir unless it remained partially molten, and that would, as we've seen, would contradict the claim that it is cooled and hardened, because it's obviously not molten then. This is even unlike biological systems such as the camel, because again, solid rock cannot be used to release energy like fat can in the case of a camel's humps. Okay, it looks like this is the final entry.
According to folklore, a sudden increase in the wild Magcargo population heralds a volcanic eruption.
Now this is an interesting one. Unlike the previous Dex entries, the Pokédex entries that tried and failed to describe Magcargo's biology and thermodynamics, folklore often has a grain of truth. So let's critically analyze whether a rise in Magcargo population could actually indicate an impending volcanic eruption. There are many accounts of animals behaving strangely before earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, often attributed to their ability to detect subtle environmental changes, such as vibrations in the Earth's crust, seismic waves. Snakes, for example, flee their burrows before earthquakes because they detect small tremors before humans do. In Yellowstone, bison and other animals have been observed moving away from geothermal areas before volcanic unrest. Some volcanic precursors involve changes in ground temperature. If Magcargo are truly volcanic creatures, they might migrate toward areas with rising heat. This is based on the idea that birds, bees, and other animals rely on Earth's magnetic field for navigation, and volcanic activity can disrupt local magnetism. In summary, a sudden increase in wild Magcargo populations could indicate that the Pokemon are being displaced by underground activity, similar to how real animals flee danger zones. Now, folklore can sometimes misinterpret correlation as causation. Just because Magcargo appear before an eruption doesn't mean they cause it. Another instance of this is with Absol that appeared just before a disaster takes place. Like when cows lie down before the rain, does it mean that cows cause rain to fall? No, of course not. Ultimately, this is the most scientifically sound Pokédex entry of all, even though it still relies on folklore instead of the scientific method. Based on a rigorous scientific evaluation of Magcargo's Pokédex entries, I'd place Magcargo firmly in F tier.